Gorilla added 8 brand new legendary weapons to Horizon Forbidden West that you can only get in New Game Plus. So after completing the main story once and then starting New Game Plus in your home base, you can find these weapons in your second playthrough at almost all the hunter vendors in the game, including the one in Chainscrape already. They're either better or different compared to the main game legendaries. They have some interesting perks, you can do some cool tricks with them, and they're overall easier to get. So everything you need to know in this video. Of course, if you enjoy the Horizon content here on the channel, then leaving a like would really help me out. Subscribe to miss nothing regarding the game. And let's go. I want to start with Iriv's downfall, because we now finally have the amazing tear precision arrow on a legendary Sharpshot bow. First you could get it on the cleaving Sharpshot bow, you got this one during the Broken Sky main mission, or you could buy the purple Glow Blast Sharpshot bow at a hunter vendor over here on the map at the hunting grounds. Well, now you can switch them out for this new legendary Sharpshot bow that can achieve a way higher tear for the tear precision arrows than the purple variant. So this is really the best way to remove parts from machines or get their usable weapons, even without fully upgrading this bow. Where the other legendary Sharpshot bow was really focused on the plasma arrows, we now have 2 regular precision arrows instead, that are of course handy to deal a ton of damage with a single shot. And we have new elite arrows that deal 51 more damage than the regular precision arrow. But yeah, maybe you already guessed it, it also costs more to make. 3 volatile sludge for 3 elite arrows versus 2 volatile sludge for 5 advanced precision arrows. Now of course, overall it is nice to have a better arrow in combination with the Power Shot Valor Surge, as then you will still benefit from the extra power plus the increased range damage without wasting resources to craft the arrow again. Upgrading the bow to get the plus 25% overdraw damage is also really recommended to further increase the damage with a single shot, so then it can all become a bit more worth it. But it of course remains an ammo hungry weapon. Now you can also unlock the instant explosion chance at upgrade rank 4, but yeah, it has a very small chance, but you can upgrade it by using the same coils. It's still not really good though. At least we think we triggered it here, as we first just did like 1 damage number with 1 shot, and here the shot after that we did a nice crit, and you also immediately see a second damage number. We actually triggered it 2 times in a row, which is pretty wild. But yeah, that does show that the extra damage you get from the explosion is not really to write home about. One more thing before we move on, the elite precision arrow namely seems bugged against frozen targets. I'm dealing 410 damage here against a frozen Tremor Tusk, but a little later I do the same amount of damage to that same Tremor Tusk, but without the frozen effect. So that's not supposed to happen, I think. They will probably fix it. But yeah, in short, I think this Sharpshot bow is really worth getting. Now moving on to the Rain of Sparks Warrior bow, which is also 10 Champions tokens. And you can of course earn these tokens in New Game Plus. I got tips on how to quickly get them. I mentioned those in my previous New Game Plus video. I will link to that one at the end of this one. So yeah, this is basically an improved version of the Karja's Bane with better regular arrows when fully upgraded, and newly added adhesive arrows, which you can very easily apply with the burst fire or spread shot weapon technique. So while no machine is like weak against this element, no machine is also strong against it, so you can really use it in a lot of situations to slow down the machine, so it's harder for them to react and they're unable to use certain attacks. It also comes with burning chance. Upgrading this to 6% will totally help you see it more often, and the knockdown damage is really good because you're already with a warrior bow able to like throw machines on the ground pretty often, so then having the increased damage against them is pretty nice. But the real star of the show is the extra crit chance at 15%. Because then, in combination with the 5 slots for extra crit chance coils, you can get really close to 100%. Maybe use a Valor Surge like the critical boost, so you are at the 100% and have the extra crit damage. It's a really great combo, and even without a Valor Surge, having the crits appear way more often, which deal 2 times the damage of the warrior bow, is really insane. And remember that the arrows only cost 2 rich wood and 1 metal shard to craft, so it's a cheap ass OP combo. The new Blastsling is called Legacy's Reach, and it's best used from far away as it has the extra long range damage perk, where the Wings of the Ten has the close range damage perk. And I of course compare all the new legendaries with the main game legendaries, and maybe you don't have all the main game legendaries yet, I also have a video going over all of those, which I will link to in the video description for if you are curious. So with this new Blastsling being more for long ranged, it's actually nice that we see the overdraw damage perk on it again, because it's easier to charge up the shots from far away than up close. This Blastsling is also great to take out medium-sized machines, and I always like to use it in the arena as it's really fast, you can quickly kill the targets, although it will of course be a bit harder to get far away from them, and you will not use any resources in the arena because of course it's a Blastsling, so it's ammo hungry, especially because it doesn't have the regular bombs but cluster bombs. So if you want to use this the regular way, you are forced to use volatile sludges to craft advanced bombs. So sure, that is the most reliable ammo option for this weapon, with the damage being higher than the fully upgraded Wings of the Ten, but if you are able to hit multiple bombs from the cluster bomb, then in the end you can deal more damage overall, so it's nice to use this ammo type against larger machines or when multiple machines are close to each other. It's totally trickier from far away, but it is kinda cool to use these bombs. We also find acid bombs on this sling, so you can totally use that to very easily build up the status effect, and you get increased damage over time by further upgrading this Legacy's Reach. Not to mention the instant plasma chance that is also on this Blastsling. As always with these instant chance perks, it's like nice when it happens, but it's also nothing to write home about. So it's all about preference. Do you like long versus close ranged combat with a Blastsling? Overall, it's a great weapon to get, of course. The Brawlbreaker is really better in every way versus the other legendary Boltblaster, the Blast Forge from the arena. Regular ammo goes up to 53 on the max level versus 50 on the Blast Forge, and the damage of the explosive bolts is higher too. I changed the piercing bolts, which I never really used, for the frost ammo, so you can freeze the target pretty rapidly if you also use the sustained burst weapon technique. Although, you could argue that it's maybe smarter to use the Boltblaster for the damage and use a bow to apply the frozen effect instead. Although still having the option is of course nice. Extra concentration damage is awesome, as using concentration with this weapon is really great. Multiple enemy damage is interesting. What you can do is line up multiple targets and then use the chain burst Valor Surge in the machine skill line. With this you can then easily apply the frozen effects to many targets and then also easily kill them by following up with the damage bolts. So it's a pretty solid tactic, and with this Boltblaster that is also increased. You all see the extra overdraw damage, which is great, and then I did not even touch on the instant slow chance, which can happen pretty often too. So then the enemy is just instant slowed out of nowhere. I really like the name for the new Hunter Bow, Tears of the Land God. Also improves on the Deathseeker Shadow in many ways. Not that you need the extra damage on the targeting arrow though, but it's still nice that you have the option on this bow as well, so you can send your aggressive machine towards a machine that you want. No, but especially the inclusion of the advanced Purge Water arrows is a first for legendary hunter bows, and these are of course really handy to disable some annoying elemental attacks from the machines. The regular damage for the arrow is also better. First the Deathseeker Shadow at the max upgrade rank, and this is next to the fact that you also have increased long range damage and extra concentration damage as the perk. So it just makes the cheap arrows even better. And it also has the component tear perk, so it's also a very cheap option to remove parts from machines. It's a great bow to just have in your weapon wheel at all times. But the same cannot be said about the new legendary Shredder Gauntlet, the final chapter, but that is mostly because this weapon is of course not for everyone. So this new legendary variant focuses more on the tear and the damage instead of the elemental shredders we see on the Ancestors Return, making both nice to get and upgrades if you really like to throw these discs. So at first glance you see that the tear shredders are a bit better on the new legendary, but the main game legendary Shredder Gauntlet has the component tear perk, so in the end it will still be better to use the tear discs with that weapon instead. Now the highlight here is that the advanced shredders are now finally on a legendary Shredder Gauntlet, although I still find it easier to use like a regular bow than throwing and catching these shredders, with the damage difference between these two weapons not being that noticeable either. We also see the crit chance perk once again, but turns out that this is only for the impact of the throw and not the damage from the shredder that sticks onto the target. The damage over time without having an elemental disc is also kinda meh, just like the instant shock chance, because for as far as I know there are no legendary coils like that, so you can never enhance the chance with this weapon. Like, sure, I'm not saying that it cannot be like a really good weapon, the perks are just not really nice, and I still think that there are easier to use weapons that deal more or the same amount of damage. But maybe that's just because I still haven't used the Shredder Gauntlet as much as the other weapons. I do like the fact that, of course, if you catch the discs 3 times, then your 4th throw will be an explosive shredder. So where we now have a new legendary Shredder Gauntlet that focuses on damage, the Allmother's Blessing is the other way around. So we first had the damage option already in the main game, and now we get a Tripcaster that has elemental traps. And with Shock, Fire and Plasma, you have a solid option against most machines you're fighting. The 40% over time damage perk is pretty nice, especially for the fire traps, while the extra stealth damage is only nice for the impact damage. So when enemies like trigger the trap for the first time and when you are hidden, which is not really great when only using elemental traps. The Chain Burst Valor Surge tactic works here as well, so then if one machine triggers the trap, all the other targets close by will also get the status effect, which is kinda nice, but I don't think it goes really well hand in hand with the multiple enemy damage, as the most damage you do is the damage over time from the fire, and I don't think the perk helps with that. Now the best perk on this weapon might actually be the instant confused chance. It starts at 4% but can go up to 8%, and fun fact by the way is that upgrading this legendary weapon is way easier than the other new legendary weapons. And it's pretty surprising that even with a low chance, the enemies will still get confused quite often. The only downside is that it will cancel the shock effect, making the shock traps way less reliable, while it does work in combination with fire and plasma. So yeah, overall a great weapon to apply these specific status effects to enemies. We also got a new spike thrower, the Defiance, which has similar ammo types as the Sky Killer, but overall higher damage when fully upgraded. Also, the overdraw damage can go up to 25% instead of the max of 15% on the first legendary spike thrower. But the other perks are sadly not that great. Knockdown damage on paper is nice, but even with a ton of knockdown power runes, it's pretty hard in our experience to throw down larger machines. And of course you want to use the spike thrower in general against these larger targets. So maybe throwing down enemies with another weapon is nice. It also has up to 6% corroding chance, but also that won't trigger that often, making the corroding enemy damage perk also not great unless you constantly switch to an acid weapon. And yeah, it has 4 perks. First, the Vive on the Sky Killer, with the Sky Killer focused on more quality of life things like reload speed and draw speed. The fire spikes were never really great, but I would argue that they're more useful than the impact spikes that still cost the metal bones to make, but then you can better use the explosive spikes. So in short, for like advanced spikes, single damage, the Defiance is the best like spike thrower in the game. But if you already got a Sky Killer on level 5 like me, then you can better focus on upgrading the other weapons first. Of course, I'm curious to hear what you think of the legendaries. Still no legendary Ropecaster though, which is kind of weird. Hopefully in upcoming DLC. When we know more about a potential expansion and other new content coming to the game, I'll of course be the first to tell you here. I got some other cool videos planned as well. So subscribe for everything Horizon if you haven't already. A like on the video would really help me out. And check out my previous video on amazing New Game Plus tips and tricks, secrets and way more. You can watch that by clicking on the screen. For now, I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.